You're not asking for much. You're not chasing fairy tales. You're not expecting perfection. You just want peace, respect, a connection that doesn't leave you second-guessing yourself every other night. But what do you do when the woman you're giving your all to starts acting like you owe her everything? What do you do when her love feels like a transaction, a silent scoreboard, a slow erosion of your confidence? There's a point where your patience becomes self-betrayal, where your empathy becomes weakness, where staying becomes self-destruction. And if she does these 5 things, that's the line. First, she mocks your emotions. You open up once, not often, not because you're weak, but because it's rare. And she laughs, rolls her eyes, tells you to man up. That moment, she didn't just disrespect your feelings, she disrespected your humanity. Second, she turns every disagreement into a guilt trip. You raise a boundary, she flips it into an attack. You say no, she cries, "You don't love me." That's not love. That's emotional warfare. And the more you explain, the deeper you sink. Third, she plays the hot-cold game. One day, you're her world. The next, you're invisible. Not because she's confused, but because she wants you confused. That's not affection. That's control dressed as passion. And if you've seen even one of these in your relationship, don't argue, don't confront, don't wait for her to change. Just pause. Because silence doesn't just protect your peace. It tells you what words can't. Fourth, she disrespects your time. Always late, always on her phone, never present. She treats your schedule like it's optional, your plans like they don't matter. But time isn't just time. It's attention. And when someone wastes it, they're wasting you. You show up on time. You care. You rearrange meetings just to be there. And she scrolls through dinner. That's not cute. That's not busy. That's disregard. And disrespect doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just ignores. Fifth, she talks down to you, especially in public. Little digs, subtle sarcasm, passive-aggressive jokes with her friends. Stuff that makes people laugh but makes your gut twist. She'll say, "I'm just playing. You're too sensitive." But deep down, you know, it's not banter, it's erosion. Because love never needs to humiliate. Not even once. Not even as a joke. Now pause. Take a breath. And ask yourself, how many of these have I accepted and called normal? How many of these have I explained away in the name of keeping the peace? But peace without respect is just silence on the edge of collapse. And you weren't born to be quiet just to be kept. You were built for something better, even if she doesn't see it. Especially if she doesn't see it. You don't need to yell. You don't need to explain. You don't need to list everything she did wrong. She knows. Maybe not consciously, maybe not fully, but deep down, people feel when they cross a line, especially when you stop letting them do it again. That's when the game breaks. Not when you argue, not when you post a quote, but when you stop reacting. You don't ghost her. You don't punish her. You just exit with clarity, with dignity, with peace. Because strong men don't seek revenge. They seek alignment. And when your energy doesn't match the room anymore, you leave the room. Not to prove anything, but because staying would mean betraying yourself. You're not weak for loving deeply. You're not wrong for trying, but you are responsible for what you continue to allow. And if her presence constantly costs you your peace, then her absence isn't a loss. It's healing. You don't have to hate her. You don't have to unlove her. You just have to unlearn the version of you that tolerated what should have never been normal. So if she does those 5 things, don't explain, don't chase, don't negotiate your worth, just walk and let your silence say everything. If this feels like truth, don't just scroll, subscribe. This space isn't for noise, it's for men who've stayed quiet for too long. You left, not with anger, not with a scene, just with a decision that your peace was worth more than her pattern. Now you're in the silence, the space after noise, the place where doubt tries to sneak in. Was I too cold? Did I give up too fast? What if she changes? But here's what you need to remember. Leaving isn't about quitting. It's about choosing. Choosing yourself over confusion. Choosing respect over attention. Choosing clarity over chaos. You don't heal by going back. You heal by going inward. You work on your body. You clean your space. You rebuild your routine. You surround yourself with stillness that doesn't drain you. And you watch as slowly the noise fades. The urge to check her page softens. The questions lose their grip. Because healing doesn't shout. It whispers. Every time you choose not to reply, you grow. Every time you don't explain yourself, you reclaim power. And someday, she'll notice. Not because you made her jealous, not because you replaced her, but because you finally chose not to be an option. You became unavailable to anything that made you question your worth. That's not revenge. That's transformation. The kind that can't be undone. The kind that makes her wonder how she lost a man who never needed to raise his voice to say, enough. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Not to her. Not to anyone. The moment you walked away, you gave yourself permission to stop explaining your worth to someone who never saw it clearly. And now you build. Not for revenge, not for attention, but because the man you're becoming demands more from you than she ever could. You start keeping promises to yourself, waking up on time, cleaning your space, lifting heavier, reading more, cutting noise, internal and external. You stop chasing chaos because chaos no longer excites you. She might pop back up. She might ask how you've been. She might pretend nothing happened. But the version of you she knew, he doesn't live here anymore. The old you would have responded, explained, tried to keep it peaceful. Now you just nod, short, respectful, unmoved. Because your silence isn't about pride, it's about protection. You're not building walls, you're planting roots. You're no longer impressed by the pull of someone who pushed you away every time you got close. Now you want depth, consistency, quiet loyalty. And the moment she realizes she no longer has access to you, not your body, not your attention, not your energy, she'll feel it, not as punishment, but as consequence. Because losing a man who knows himself hurts far more than keeping one who doesn't. So you don't respond. You don't retaliate. You don't reopen the door to someone who watched you bleed and called it overreacting. You just move forward, not to escape, but to expand. And the deeper you walk into your peace, the louder your absence becomes. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't post quotes. It doesn't need to tell anyone what it's doing. It just works. Quietly, daily, deliberately. You start seeing things you used to ignore. How heavy her silence was. How much energy it took just to feel heard. How often you traded your peace just to avoid conflict. And you don't hate her for it. You just don't want to repeat it. You've stopped craving closure. You've stopped checking in. You've stopped hoping she finally sees your worth. Because now, you see it yourself. The compliments don't hit the same. You don't need the validation. You're no longer waiting to be picked. You've picked yourself. And it shows. In your posture, in your decisions, in the way you no longer respond out of urgency, but out of purpose. You don't chase. You invite. You don't react. You reflect. Women feel it. Not because you try harder, but because you're calmer, more grounded, more selective. You don't entertain disrespect anymore. You don't reward inconsistency with loyalty. You don't apologize for wanting depth, because peace is now the standard. If someone threatens it, you distance, not to punish, but to protect what you've built. You know now, walking away from her wasn't weakness. It was awareness. She didn't lose a man because he wasn't enough. She lost him because he finally realized he didn't need to beg to be loved right. And in that quiet exit, he became everything she never expected. The kind of man who no longer proves. He simply lives. Now you're harder to read. Not because you're hiding, but because you're finally whole. You no longer share pieces of yourself just to stay relevant in someone's life. You no longer shrink your standards just to avoid being alone. You've made peace with being misunderstood, because when your energy shifts, the world doesn't always know what to do with you. She might reach out again, ask how you've been, say she misses you, say she's changed, and maybe she has. But you're not here to test her growth. You're here to protect your own. You respond, maybe, kind, short, respectful. But you don't offer access. You don't give updates. You don't owe closure to someone who mistook your consistency for convenience. That's the part they don't expect. Not that you left, but that you didn't come back when they opened the door. Because by then, you had already walked through another one. One that didn't require performance. One that didn't punish softness. One that let you be seen without needing to bleed. People don't change for being forgiven. They change when they realize access is gone. You didn't block her. You didn't shame her. You just stopped orbiting. And from where you stand now, everything feels lighter. Because power doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes, it just looks like stillness. The kind of stillness that can't be manipulated. The kind that makes people wonder, not because you're playing hard to get, but because you finally stopped playing altogether. She'll remember you, not for the arguments, not for the calls you stopped answering, but for the moment you stopped trying, with peace. You didn't leave to make her regret. You left because continuing would have meant forgetting who you are. And that's what she didn't see coming. Because you were always there, always available, always ready to fix what she broke without ever asking her to repair you. Now, you don't need her to explain. You don't need her to apologize. You don't need her to see your side, because you've already seen enough. You saw the patterns, the passive aggression, the inconsistency wrapped in charm. You saw how she loved the idea of you, but not the effort it took to truly meet you. And the man you are now, he no longer fights to stay where he's not fully welcomed. You don't hate her. You thank her for showing you what misalignment feels like, so you'd never settle for it again. That's the quiet transformation. Not louder, just clearer. You build differently now. You speak less. You expect more. Not from others, but from yourself. And in that shift, you become unrecognizable to the woman who once thought she knew every version of you, because she never met this one. The one who doesn't explain silence, the one who doesn't beg for peace, the one who is peace. That's how you leave. Not to run, not to hurt, but to return to the man you were before you bent too far to be loved wrong. You didn't lose her. You let go of the weight you were never meant to carry. You don't have to yell. You don't have to argue. You don't have to explain why you're walking away. If she disrespects your peace, belittles your effort, mocks your emotions, or plays games with your presence, you don't correct her. You correct your direction. This video explores 5 subtle yet powerful red flags that strong men should never normalize. If you've been giving your energy to someone who doesn't value it, this is your reminder. Peace is a choice. Inside Inner Fort, we don't teach hate. We teach clarity. We teach self-respect. We teach the kind of silence that doesn't punish. It protects. Watch till the end. And if it hits different, subscribe. This space is for men who've stayed silent too long. The people who try to shake your calm are the ones who never had their own. But here, you've found your ground. So stay, watch this next video, and keep rising silently. Inner Fort, subscribe, stay strong.